Tony Curtis, who was young at the time, came on the scene right before Hollywood's golden age stars. His blue eyes and good looks helped him win over many fans. Curtis was more than just a pretty face, and fans quickly came to adore him. Because he was such a good actor, his work lasted for 60 years, which put him in the More Than 100 Films Club for many fans. Curtis started out as the sweetheart and grew up to be a hero. Most of Curtis's devoted fans didn't know this, but he had a very scary dark side that no one knew about. This is where you can hear the truth. You might be able to connect to Curtis, who was 23 years old when he moved to Hollywood in 1948. He had no idea what California would do to him or what this new adventure would take away from him. He knew he had to leave his bad life and poverty, though, just like many other people. You see, Curtis was born to Jewish parents who came to America. They worked as poor tailors and only spoke Hungarian. After a long day of work, they lived at the back of the shop. Curtis's mom was later labeled with schizophrenia, which added to the problems in the family. And as if things couldn't get any worse for the family, Curtis's younger brother Robert was locked up for the same mental illness. Things got worse for this family. Curtis had to put off going to school because he couldn't understand English. When he was 8 years old, because they couldn't afford to feed them, he and his brother Julius were put in a shelter for a month. After 4 years, Curtis's brother Julius died in an accident. A truck hit the boy and killed him. This was the last straw for Curtis. He was by himself and had given up hope. Curtis joined a neighborhood gang when he was only 12 years old. The main things they did were skipping school and shopping. This was his life. It seemed like there was no way out until a friend took a chance on the hurt child. Curtis's nice neighbor sent him to a Boy Scout camp so that the teen could use his anger and energy for a good cause. And luckily, the move and change of scenery helped a lot. Curtis was more at ease when he got back from camp. The new him could go to high school and learn the basics that would give him a better chance at life. But the school did more for him than just teach him. When she was 16, it made her want to play. Curtis got his first small part as an actor. Curtis took the part of an idiot in a settlement house play so seriously that he shaved himself bald for it. He also did everything he could to keep his head warm while he waited for the stage for almost 3 hours. That's how determined he was to act. That was more than enough for the stage to grab him. But before he could have the chance to start a job, Curtis joined the Navy and served on a submarine in World War II. He was given an honorable discharge from the Army after the war. You can guess what he was happy to do first: acting. Curtis' only chance was to become an actor, but he didn't know how to start his career in the field. He followed a comic he met in the Navy around and did everything the comedian asked of him in order to get in. In fact, Curtis pretty much took over as his maid. All of this was done in the hopes that this comedian with ties to Hollywood could show him how to act and maybe even put him in touch with the right people. The acting lessons didn't go well at all. It was even said that the comic said Curtis wasn't good at acting at all. After the failed lessons he taught himself, Curtis started taking acting lessons in New York at the New School for Social Research. Other people from his high school were also starting classes there. Joyce Selznick found Curtis while he was in acting school. Joyce is a famous talent agent, casting director, and niece of David O. Selznick, a film producer. Curtis didn't think he would be successful in Hollywood, even though she believed in him. Maybe that was because even the college he had graduated from didn't think he was good enough. He told her, "I was 1,000,000 to 1 shot, the least likely to succeed because he didn't think he was good enough. I wasn't. There I was, tied to a sack and under the totem pole. He even said he was only interested in girls and money at first. But it was clear that Curtis's biggest fear was having to go back to the Bronx as a loser and live in poverty, which had already broken up his family. Thus, Curtis kept playing in everything that came his way, even though people told him he wasn't good enough. He could have gone back to the Bronx instead. In some parts, he had to stand behind the backdrop on stage and pull ropes, or he had to get on stage and do the same thing. He would play parts where he spoke languages he didn't know. He thought it was better than going back home. He went to 20th Century Fox and asked to be trained as Tarzan when he couldn't find work elsewhere. They told him to grow 8 inches before coming back after seeing how short he was. Talk about wild. Finally, Curtis got another playing job with an off-Broadway company, this time doing some of George Bernard Shaw's work. Curtis's persistence paid off in the end, because that's where he was at his best. Word of his promise reached an aspiring theatrical agent, who set up a meeting between Curtis and the head of Eastern operations for Universal International Pictures. That meeting went well enough for Curtis to get his first stock deal with a movie company. Curtis was given a suit and a ticket to Hollywood before anyone could blink. He met Jack Warner by chance on that plane to California, which was a surprise. Some people would say that it was a sign that Curtis was supposed to be great, even though it didn't help him at the time. He had to lose something, like his name, before he could become famous. Born Bernard Schwartz, which makes it clear that he is Jewish. Curtis had trouble because he didn't have an easy-to-remember name that sounded like it came from America. That was one of the things he had to give up when he was about to start a real job in Hollywood. Before Curtis changed his name, the director of his first movie told him about it. He chose the name Anthony Adverse. But the head told him right away that name was already used by someone else in the business. In order to get Anthony Curtis, Curtis had to give in. He moved to Hollywood as Anthony Curtis and lived in an apartment with only one mattress. Every day he only ate milk and pie. What could he do? He was only making $43 a week. And money wasn't the only problem he had to deal with. Because Curtis was ignorant, he was abused and taken advantage of. It wasn't because he was stupid or foolish. Because he kept telling himself he wasn't good enough, he was just willing to learn as much as he could. You might have thought, well, at least he was pretty. Curtis would tell you that being pretty was like getting a ticket out of a trash can where I came from. Not at Universal, though. There were 15 guys who looked just as good as me and were waiting for me to trip and fall. Hollywood helped him get along with everyone. Even though he had a really bad start to his life, he felt like he had no reason to be mean because so many other people's stories were meaningful. Curtis almost quit Hollywood at one point and was about to do the one thing he swore would never happen. Went back to the Bronx. One of the studio press agents found him at Union Station waiting for the first train going east. They spent some time trying to get Curtis to not give up on his dream. This is one of those times when Curtis would be very thankful. After he went back to work, he had less and less dialogue in his next 3 projects, but something else was going on. More people were writing to Curtis than to the movie stars. He thought back. I was a big star in movie magazines, but in pictures I couldn't get caught. They even had games. It took Tony Curtis a week to lose. All of a sudden I was a winner. This past week, a woman in Terre Haute won me over. When we got there, she told me, I really wanted the gas burner in the end. It all paid off when his 5th movie became a huge hit. When the group came on stage for the parade at the movie premiere, they were politely applauded. But the mood changed when Curtis, who was the last person to go on stage, showed up. The movie magazine's main readers were girls in the crowd. They were used to seeing Curtis on glossy pages and couldn't believe they were seeing him in real life. They showed how excited they were by stomping their feet hard and yelling as loud as they could. A lot of trouble almost broke out at the meet and greet. Curtis said it was like going into an oven that was wide open. The company and the cast were shocked. And it's not their fault. Curtis wasn't very well known. He barely got any screen time at all, let alone time to build a fan group. In fact, the company used his appearance in the magazine to make money because he wasn't making any as an actor. Still, he was there, almost surrounded by fans. As soon as the studio got over their shock, they set out to find Curtis a show where he could be the star. They did this right away. The movie. The Prince Who Was a Thief was a great way for them to start. It showed off Curtis in all his manly glory, and the story wasn't too hard to follow for the fans they were making it for. Curtis got his first private changing room right away. Because he was so well known, his movie made about $2 million. It cost about $200,000 to make. The studio couldn't believe they had found the source of wealth they had been missing for so long without realizing it. When they saw the gold pots coming in, they hurried to make the follow-up to Curtis movie. This, too, did very well in the business world. It was clear right away that everyone loved seeing Curtis on TV. Over the next few years, he was in a lot of movies that made a lot of money, solidifying his status as one of the rising stars of his time. YS. We call him a rising star because he got to the next level. Had him sitting down with Music Corporation of America, Hollywood's most powerful talent agent. Hollywood finally saw that he was a real person when he got this stamp. But Curtis and his team thought that they could reach a higher level after 7 years with Universal. Hollywood stars like Burt Lancaster, Kirk Douglas, and James Dean were the ones who made things happen, and Curtis's team thought he could be in the same group. The group got to work. Their hard work paid off when they found movies where these big boys could star and still have room for Curtis. For the next few years, Curtis acted with the big boys and had the best parts in many movies with them. He said that the big movie stars took the stress off of me. I had the best parts. They were aware of it, but they didn't care because it gave them a chance to chill out and keep their money safe since they knew the kids liked me.